Badlands, right at the Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Breaking History, where Gordon and I are very, very happy to go through some international developments with an eye towards context, past, and as well with a look to the future. Gordon, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. A lot of turbulence going on. I know you and I were chatting a little bit about the different points we want to hit at. But before we do anything, let's do a little quick word from today's sponsor, Goldco. And Goldco has a new ad, I believe, that I've never seen before. Is your wealth ready for Trump's next wave? Gold loves a Trump headline, and it's soaring. From the day he took office, gold prices have climbed, gaining nearly $400 per ounce since his second term began. Why? Gold thrives in uncertainty. It's a time-tested safe haven, immune to government meddling, a shielding against inflation, and proven way to protect wealth when markets wobble. With Trump's second term heating up, will gold smash new records in 2025? Nobody knows how high it could go, but smart investors aren't waiting to find out. Take control today. You could even qualify for up to 10% bonus silver. Discover an IRS-approved way to diversify your savings with gold and silver, tax and penalty-free. Get your free gold and silver kit delivered straight to your door and learn how to safeguard your future. Visit badlandsgold.com to claim your kit and start building a stronger portfolio today. That's badlandsgold.com. Don't miss out. All right. Here, let me just make sure I've got the right microphone here. I do. Okay. So, yeah, no, we've got quite a number of things that we could feasibly hit at, both as far as the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, some of the anomalies that I know you've talked about in other shows, things that I've been looking at, I'd like to get your thoughts on and just observations. We've also got the international context. A lot of people are talking about the danger of ungovernability and potentially, mass violence breaking out across various parts of Europe, the UK being no exception, and interesting stuff also happening in the Middle East. But I don't know, of all the choices we have in front of us, also Trump is in the UK today, meeting with Camilla, Keir Starmer, King Charles III. So a lot, I don't know. What appeals to you the most at this moment to tackle?
Sorry, my wife was just texting me. Just making sure that my kids are okay. Always got to make sure that everything's good whenever I get a text like that.
For sure.
To answer your question, I know I saw some people in the chat saying that they hope the show isn't about Charlie Kirk today. And don't worry, we're not gonna sit here and do another Charlie Kirk show. I've done many, I wouldn't say many. I've done a couple of shows about Charlie Kirk over the past week. So what we're going to talk about, or I think what we should talk about, is we should talk about the massive devolution, for lack of a better word, and no pun intended, of the fragile symbiosis or whatever of the information battle space is shattered. And we've reached it, to borrow a term from Burning Bright. I think he uses the term shatterpoint often, in his writing, and I think he refers that to the moment that somebody kind of if I'm using it correctly in his context, I think he refers to it as the moment where somebody breaks and becomes aware of the red pilled, or they're broken to the point where they are exposed or whatever. I think that we reached a shatter point in the zeitgeist where it's a full blown just open civil war right now in terms of the information battle space, where I just opened some X tabs because I was trying to pull up as we were getting ready for the show, because I was trying to pull up some specific first I was trying to post about this on X, but I was also trying to pull up some specific clips or things I wanted to look at. And every time I opened up a new X tab, there was at the top of my feed, there was a new, another post from some account where I was oh, that's a good thing to save. That's a good thing to save, either for me to show during the show today or to look at after the show is over. And most of it is people are large influencer accounts, whether they're commentators or elected officials, engaging in this just vicious civil war, for lack of a better word, because it really is like the right versus the right now. I don't think the left is really relevant anymore, and I've been saying that for a long time. So that is what really has my interest captivated. I mean, Charlie Kirk is the catalyst. I think like his assassination is the catalyst for that. So we certainly want, and you and I haven't spoken about it since it happened, of course. So I think it's fair that you and I talk about the subject, but we don't need to like do a like an analysis of the event, of like a breakdown of the shooting itself, or anything like that. I think we could probably talk about it more from a narrative standpoint and from the actions of the intelligence community and what it means in the broader context of history and what we know about these agencies.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of thing that we can provide. I mean, a lot of people have done the dissections, and I mean, it's still underway. There's always new information coming in, but I think that overall, there's generally a consensus that the official narrative is garbage, just like every official narrative we've been given for every assassination, every terrorist attack that has induced Americans to go along or acquiesce to things that ultimately have led to more war, more enslavement, more injustice, more power, to, an unelected ruling oligarchy. There's a lot of similarities that we're seeing already. It's strange that I think people have noted that this kid seems to be a complete psyoped kid, this 21-year-old, creature, whatever he is. There's, I was just reading some of the coverage pertaining to somebody asking ChatGPT about the Discord conversation that he had with his gay trans lover or something like that, pertaining to his.
That seems like the fakest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And I read through it. It is so contrived. It's like you couldn't even write this if you were a bad B-movie script writer or a bad novella writer trying to make like low quality romance novels. It's so fake. And yet this is what all of the media is running with as evidence, the smoking gun evidence that this guy clearly did it. There's no one else to look at, nothing else to see here. Sorry, I can see that you got something coming out of your head.
I just wanted to make a note before we move past that I'm getting like text messages from my friends who are asking like that specific piece of evidence has to be fake, right? Like they're like that thing has to be fake. So, and these are not necessarily like, some of them know that I do Badlands. Some of them like are less aware of that. But they all know that I'm into this stuff and that I'm like, I track these events. And so they're asking me my opinion, but they're like, do you agree that this fake? This thing looks so fake. Not referring to the shooting of Charlie Kirk, but referring to that specific like text exchange that they've released. And I saw that people have like plugged it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like, yeah, this is so like perfectly laid out that this feels like a very scripted conversation and something that is not a natural flow. So anyway, I didn't mean to disrupt your
No, don't worry. I know. And I was watching, like, somebody sent me this ABC News clip. We have to just pay a little bit, because you and I haven't really talked about this.
Yeah, of course.
But so let's just pay our lip service a little bit. But I agree with you. Like, overall, what we can provide is more of the context. Like, what is the game plan? What is the intention? What are what is the broader strategic environment in which this is occurring? Because this is part of a broader formula that's been applied many times to get certain effects. And the effects is what we want to always look for, because that's the intention, or that's what gets us closer to the intention and helps us avoid, by knowing it, traps that are set for us to react emotionally to certain things. But that being said, this is an ABC clip, which I couldn't even believe, especially after having read those Discord messages, that they would even do what they do here, where they're treating this like a romantic. Anyway, I just got to play it. It's 50 seconds, but I'm just going to play this thing. It's ridiculous.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was tough.
I can't.
I mean, look, like removing the context of the fact that we're talking about somebody who, is accused, like narratively, like I am very suspect this guy actually is the guy who pulled the trigger. But we're talking about somebody who's an assassin, number one, and then just a very gruesome assassination, a very traumatic event. And then, of course, the target being someone who, the character of Charlie Kirk, I've talked about that on other shows. We don't need to opine on that further. But like very despicable for ABC to do that. But you take all that and you put it aside, just the context of what the actual text message said, and then that guy trying to sell it is laugh out loud funny. Because I'm not trying to trivialize the Charlie Kirk side of it. Mm-hmm. It's so pathetic. This, like, first of all, the text messages do not read that way. They read like an AI speaking to another AI, like, oh, these are what human emotions are, and these are how humans are supposed to speak to one another if we were writing a romantic novel. Yeah.
Do you want to read a sample of them, or have people?
Oh, please pull it up.
Let's just pull up a sample here. Okay, this is the first one or the second one? This is the. Yeah, I think this is the first one here. Robinson saying, I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in, what is that? Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Roommate transitioning. You weren't the one who did it, right? I am sorry.
I mean, dude, what? Like, no. First of all, like, if I were to take that, like those three, like those three texts don't make any sense. If you were just to take those three and be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like the exchange, like clearly it's almost like we walked into the room and they're in the middle of a conversation. That's what it feels like. Like we're missing earlier texts before that exchange began. If you were to accept this as real. And it's almost like they were already talking about the fact that he had done this. He's like, yeah, I'll be home soon. I was going to go grab my rifle. I was really hoping to keep this all secret. Sorry that you have to be involved in this. And the guy's like, wait a minute. You aren't involved, are you? He goes, I am. I'm sorry. It's like,
what? Yeah.
It's such bad. This is such bad script writing. Like they should have paid more money for this, for the premium service of ChatGPT if they were going to ask it to write this for them.
I know. And actually somebody here actually put this whole thing into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT came up with the verdict saying, the question was, could this be real? ChatGPT said, possibly, but very unlikely because of how detailed, staged, and incriminating it is. More likely, it's fabricated, either by a human writing a mock transcript for dramatic effect or by AI prompted to generate a fake chat log about a violent event. And ChatGPT diagnoses it even more in greater detail. But this kid, I mean, it's just, he's clearly got the profile of like a Saran psych case. Here he's wearing a bulky green vest. He's been in detention now, didn't say much, but then even though he didn't say much, all of a sudden this Discord thing just conveniently comes up. But this kid has been, I'm just going to throw a couple of things that much of the audience has probably seen, but it's new to me. I was just looking into this with a bit more scrutiny last night. So, for me, it's but this is a picture of the kid literally going through. I mean, this is bigger than a rifle. This is this kid who's been obviously like groomed. He's had photographs of himself taken at shooting ranges with a Barrett 50 caliber. Here's his mom as well, who's getting trained by the uncle, this uncle figure. She had to remove these things from social media, but that's Amber Jones Robinson, also going through target practice with these things. And Mike Robinson is this is the guy, right? This is the Uncle Mike who had brought them into a training center to, I mean, this guy works with the friggin' Azov Battalion of Ukraine. And literally he's a recruitment officer. That's from his LinkedIn page. He's a member of the board of trustees of the Ukrainian Special Operations and Wounded Warrior Cossack Foundation. He's part of the Azov, like he's a direct interface. He interfaces directly with the Azovs. He's a member of the board of Radio Free Ukraine, which is CIA. That's Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Ukraine. That's been the CIA front for propaganda since the earliest days of the Cold War. That's Uncle Mike. And I had other pictures, but I didn't upload them. And that's Mike putting out a post on his LinkedIn saying, I am looking for interest in hosting combat veterans and wounded warriors from the Ukrainian 3rd Assault Corps, aka Azov Battalion, now and end of 2025 to speak about their experiences in the war, tactics, techniques, and procedures, casualty care, combat effectiveness training, drones, technology on the battlefield, and rehabilitation of wounded warriors. This will require further discussions, so let me know and we'll continue. Also looking for contacts in Canada, interested in helping with visiting Canada during the same period.
So like as soon as I saw this break, I found this on like an obscure Ukraine news Telegram channel like early yesterday, and I immediately forwarded it to like our Badlands to like the like one of the many Badlands private chats that we have. And I know Jordan Sather and John just was completely immediately enthralled and was just, I know John's been digesting, like going down that rabbit hole. He started sharing a few things he was finding like on the Radio Free Ukraine with me, but basically he was like, all right, I'm going into like just digger mode and I'll follow up when I have something, when I have something comprehensive. So I'll be very interested to hear what John develops, whether he shares it on his Daily Herald show or if he shares it on DPH tonight. I don't want to get out ahead of him and maybe he won't even talk about it, but he's just, he's the documents king when it comes to this stuff. So when he does a dig, he does it right. And I'll be interested to hear what he comes up with. The fact that this guy's tied to Ukraine at all is very, very strange. The fact that he's tied to the Azov Battalion is like, again, it's almost like this is scripted. I mean, this all feels a little too scripted. I don't know if the media's run with that at all. I haven't seen any media reports that have like described the fact that his father is tied to the Azov Battalion. That seems like his uncle is tied to the Azov Battalion. That seems like a pretty notable thing for the media to report, especially when you consider that other guy, Ruth, who was picked up in at Mar-a-Lago, allegedly trying to assassinate Trump. That he also had ties to Ukraine, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole thing.
Oh, he was a recruiter for the Ukrainian militia and Azov specifically. So
Azov Battalion
was directly tied to the Azovs.
Yeah. So again, like this whole thing, this is like radioactive levels of glowing. The whole thing just glows more than I can possibly.
The last thing got to be said. I mean, at this point, I'm sure everybody's seen this to varying degrees, but I again just saw this late last night. George Zinn. What the hell is George Zinn? The guy who was originally picked up, this guy who originally was arrested, and that we all thought, oh, that's the shooter, really? Who was saying it's me, shoot me, yelling it out loud, and got detained on site after the murder of Kirk. Turns out this guy, he just admitted after his arrest to child pornography. His phone was replete with child porn, kids aged 5 to 12. And so this guy admitted to this. That's now a strange thing. Like the timing of him choosing to admit to that, of all things, is weird. The fact that he was clearly trying to create a diversion by shouting the way he was, also weird. But then his background is funky.
The background's weird.
Yeah, like this guy's been in many 9/11 documentaries because he became kind of famous since he was among the first, maybe he was the first person to call into the FBI at on the moment of the second plane hitting the towers, saying, "I am looking at planes flying into the towers," and he was like reporting on this as an eyewitness, became somewhat famous, and then gave testimonials, was asked to give interviews, supporting this official narrative of actual planes having been hijacked, run out of some cave in Afghanistan or Pakistan by Osama bin Laden. So he's that, but also he was also participating. I mean, he got arrested in 2013.
Yep.
For calling into the FBI, threatening a bomb right after the Boston Marathon,
Yes.
the Boston bombing, or that whole thing.
So
he went
just to be
something in
clear,
Salt Lake City. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to be clear, he did exactly what happened last week, where he like, because I saw the videos, like he was like being pulled to the ground and put in handcuffs, and he was reciting his Miranda rights as loud as he could. Right. I have the right to remain silent. Anything I say can and will be used against me. Right. And then I recall seeing a video, I could probably go find it, of him being like walked like through a tunnel, and you know, the police officers are approaching the cameraman, and they're like passing by him, and there are people yelling at him, and they're like, "Is that him? Is that him?" And then one of the police officers, it sounds like, yells, "We don't know if it's him." And I like sent that to Alpha Warrior, who, you know, from Badlands, because Alpha, you know, is a cop. And I was like, "Alpha, is this normal?" And Alpha was like, "Absolutely not. Like, a cop is not like when you, especially when you have a camera in your face and you're at like a high profile situation, you never say a word when you're perp walking someone." Like,
so
the
probably
whole thing
not.
was
That probably wasn't a cop, is what you're saying. I
have no idea. I have no idea. But it was like the cop shouted something. It wasn't totally audible, but it sounded something like, "We don't know if it's him," something like that.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, what this guy did is he basically stepped forward before anybody knew what the hell was going on and said, "I did it. I shot Charlie Kirk." They arrested him. He's shouting out his Miranda rights. He did the exact same thing in 2013. He basically called in and was like, "Yeah, I did the Boston marathon bombing," or something to that effect. Like, he was basically saying that it was that somehow he was involved. He was arrested for, I believe, what is it? Here it is. I have it right here. It says from KSL.com, Salt Lake City, George Hodges, 59, told investigators he didn't mean anything by sending an email to the marketing director of the marathon asking, "I was wondering if you needed somebody to help place bombs near the finish line on Saturday," according to court documents. So he emailed like the marketing director of the Boston Marathon and said, "I was wondering if you needed anybody to help place bombs near the finish line on Saturday." Okay. So what? And you know, my understanding is that he sent that before the Boston Marathon bombing happened. So he just happened to know that was going to happen, sent the email, right? And then just happened to be like at the place where Charlie Kirk is shot, and then stands up and screams, "I'm your guy," while there's chaos and pandemonium and everyone's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Before anybody has their senses about them, he stands up and screams, "I'm the one who shot." It basically is like, "I'm the one who shot Charlie Kirk." Dude, what? No. Yeah.
I don't know how they find child. Like, I mean, this guy is like a rampant pedophile, or not pedophile, but he's into, no, not a pedophile. I can't say that, but he's into child pornography and clearly a degenerate, and somehow has been involved consistently for over 25 years in doing these sorts of weird psyops in service of what exactly? And it's weird to get into the mindset of like, how does a creature like that get formed and then receive instructions? And just, it's just mind-boggling. But then on top of that, you know, you got all of the evidence being taken down, right?
This
like
is the courtyard where it all happened. It's
the courtyard where the video of this courtyard is 20 seconds long of where the murder happened in the University of Utah. And they're already Well, just check it out.
This is the courtyard where it all happened. It's now open to the public again. There's lots of people coming here, placing flowers, cards, things like that. And the university is already making some changes. They're replacing the grass where Charlie Kirk was speaking with pavers. And there are several petitions online asking the school to make this into a permanent memorial for Charlie Kirk.
So they're already they've dismantled all of the stage, all of the points of evidence that could indicate that the bullet actually came from a completely different source. And it seems like there's enough forensic evidence that indicates that it came from behind and on the side, and that was an exit wound that people saw. But anyway, that can't even be
potentially. Yeah, I've seen that. It is very compelling. My mind is open. Like, my mind is open. Alpha and CanCon are not sold on that theory, but I think the guy who made that is friends with Alpha or friends with CanCon. Like, CanCon knows who he is. I think he might be going on sit rep. I don't want to get out ahead of CanCon, but I think CanCon and him might have like a public discourse about that. So I'll be interested. I will like reserve judgment on that until I see them hash it out, assuming they actually do hash it out. So
definitely, I'll certainly watch that. Point is, we can't really know if they've just destroyed all of the physical evidence, and now they're replacing even the grass. They're getting rid of everything that would allow you to do some serious forensic work into what the hell actually happened. I mean, it's mind-boggling what's underway right now. And I think the last thing that caught my eye is we talked about Candace Owens last week, and Candace Owens has been up to some weird stuff. I mean, I think she's an honest person, but who's been, I think, targeted for some deep psychological operations and has been sort of, it seems, almost deconstructed and reconstructed on certain very important points of what shapes her identity. But the messaging, and we talked about that, how she's getting her new understanding of what is the United States from British priests and MI6 connected authors. We talked about that last week, who are like helping her understand that the entire U.S. revolution and the U.S. experience is pretty much a Freemasonic fraud that got Americans to be separated from God, as if God is somehow located in the loyalty to the British monarchy and the system of the British divine right of kings. And that the American Revolution being a break from that was, as she spoke about with Milo in that interview clip that we had watched, a separation of a breakaway, like a Luciferian breakaway from God. So she's onto some weird stuff, but she recently came out
and just to specify further, and she came to that conclusion by speaking to Catholic priests specifically. I'm not attacking Catholicism, but the fact that they're Catholic priests in London. Because remember, like, Britain under Henry VIII broke from the Catholic Church and became the Anglican Church. So Catholic priests in London. And after reading a book written by a guy who we went and looked at his Wikipedia page last week, openly admits, he's like, yeah, I've never actually formally worked with MI6, but I've worked with them throughout my entire career, including like in some pretty important situations like Libya when they overthrew Gaddafi. I was working with MI6 to get like narratives out. What?
Yeah.
And he's the one who wrote the book that said that basically like postulates that the American Revolution was a Freemasonic conspiracy to subjugate humanity, basically.
Yeah. And this is I still have the picture from last week, Nicholas Hager, and people can watch that little show we did. I started reading that book. It arrived in the mail 2 days ago. So I've been just breezing through it. It's kind of a small book from 1989, but very, very sophisticated, narrative reframing, and I'll have a more thorough assessment of that when I finish this book. But it's very he knows what he's doing, and this is a guy. Keep in mind, this Nicholas Hager guy, who is this guy is so eyeballs deep. He's written like 90 books. He was the guy assigned to tutor Emperor Hirohito's son. Emperor Hirohito himself of Japan, having been made an initiate of the Order of the Garter of England. So this guy was a member of the Order of the Garter, which is a sort of English, crusader tribalist order that idolized the knighthoods, the elegant, dragon killing knighthoods of St. George, around which the the flag of St. George, which is making a pretty big wild comeback right now with the whole Unite the Kingdom movement that Tommy Robinson has been leading with a bunch of Knights Templar. They're literally called the New Templar Order, and they're big parts of what are this movement that is adjacent to and interfacing with Tommy Robinson, but they're also very obsessed with Solomon's Temple. They're very obsessed with restoring the kingdom of Jerusalem. It's a big, big driving force of a lot of this stuff, but they're also obsessed with trying to create a new, it's a different kind of nationalism. They're trying to take authentic nationalism and make it more tribal and militant. Yeah. So the type of nationalism that I think we could see when you look at people like Albert Pike, the Boston-based disciple of Caleb Cushing, the Scottish Rite Grandmaster who managed William Garrison back in the 1830s, 1840s, who was another disciple, ironically, William Garrison being a radical abolitionist and a member of the Scottish Rite Northern branch, and then the Boston-based Albert Pike, who ends up leading the Southern branch of the Scottish Rite in the decades before the actual Civil War breaks out in America. But if you look at Albert Pike, this guy is organizing the Order of the Golden Circle. They're running terrorist operations against abolitionists. You have William Lloyd Garrison organizing terrorist operations against Confederate states as well, like the shooting of Harper's Ferry. He deploys this idiot John Brown to go and organize a militia to like basically murder a ton of people on Harper's Ferry in 1859 as his way of trying to, counteract the plague of slavery. Now, both sides appear to be like running a chaos operation to radicalize both extremes to tear the nation apart, to basically cannibalize itself. And I think when you look at it from the standpoint of these Scottish Rite and also Mormon, and I couldn't help but notice that a lot of the stuff that happened was around Mormon territory in Utah, which is itself a Freemasonic hub. Like the Nuovo Lodge that was set up by Joseph Smith was part of what created the first Mormon War, right, in Missouri, the Missouri Mormon Wars of 1838. That was the first civil war in America.
Interesting.
And then there was another one, and then another one in 1950. The last one being in 1858. So these were all being organized by these Freemasonic networks. This guy Morgan, right? People know of the guy who initiated the anti-Masonic movement was the disappearance of William Morgan. William Morgan did disappear. It's true, and he did write a book. That's true too, talking about what were the rituals of at least the first 3 degrees of Masonry in 1825 or 1826. Now, he disappeared. The book was then massively published after he disappeared, and we were all told he died. He was killed by Freemasons from Canada who didn't like the fact that he was exposing their secrets. But now justice reigned as his book was still published posthumously and really published. Like, this thing was printing more than the Bible. And it sparked this anti-Masonic movement. It starting in 1826, that went on to like 1840. And he had anti-Masonic parties. Like 95% of the lodges in North America were shut, or at least in the United States were shut down. But did William Morgan actually die? And that's the big question. Did William Morgan actually die? Because there was never a body, and they just speculated that he did. Well, here's the weird thing. His wife immediately, upon his disappearance, his wife immediately gets married again. Who does she get married to? Of all of the people in the United States, of all of the people to choose from, she marries Joseph Smith. She becomes one of like the 25 wives of Joseph Smith. That's a weird choice of a husband.
Wow.
Also 1840, apparently like 15 years after William Morgan has disappeared, he's given a reverse. There's an open ceremony in a Mormon compound in Utah that delivers a reverse baptism. For some reason, I don't fully understand why, but there's this ritual that once you die, you get some form of a reverse baptism. I'm not too sure what the logic is for that. But why does that happen in a Mormon compound in Utah 15 years after he supposedly was already dead? Strange. Was it the case that he was perhaps just living in a Mormon compound? And the fact is, there's another thing too, that the that the when you look at the actual like headquarters, the lead temple of the Mormons in Utah, in Salt Lake, I think it's in Salt Lake City, features the Eye of Horus, right? You have that directly overhead the main entrance. You've got a variety of Masonic symbols. And for those who have been in the inner initiated realm and have like left it, have defected, they've talked about what sort of initiatory rites, what sort of scripts have to be said as they go through their rituals. And it is exactly word for word what Morgan is talking about in the book that was published so-called posthumously in 1826, that then justified this massive purge of Masonic lodges. So who was actually benefiting? When you read Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, as well as when you read his counterpart, who is the Grand Master of the Northern Jurisdiction, both of them, whose name I'm just forgetting all of a sudden, J.J. Gorgas, that's him, who's the head of the Northern Jurisdiction of Freemasonry, at the same time as Pike is running and overseeing the reform of the Southern Rite. Both of them speak positively about Morgan, even though they're Freemasons, and even though Morgan supposedly created and justified this massive shutdown, this anti-Masonic movement. Both of them, Pike and Gorgas, speak positively about Morgan and the anti-Masonic movement. They like it. Why do they like it? Because all of the Republican lodges were purged. The Henry Clay Lodge was purged. All of the lodges that were actually trying to keep the fight of the American Revolution alive, they were purged. And as Pike and Gorgas both say, it was like a cleansing reform, so that by the end of the anti-Masonic movement, when that petered out, the only lodge that became dominant was the Scottish Rite, which itself was seated by the United Grand Lodge of England, because the Scottish Rite came out of the Charleston, Charleston Lodge in South Carolina. That was a British lodge set up by Augustine Prevost. And Augustine Prevost, whose brother was also a Grand Master of that lodge, was a British agent. He was a British soldier, but a British grand strategist, not just a soldier, who oversaw the secret police operation that was supposedly disbanded in 1775, but the actual lodge continued on. And that lodge became in 1801, the first Scottish Rite Lodge in America. But that was what he set up. And his brother, James Prevost, had a lawyer. That lawyer was Aaron Burr. And when James Prevost died, James Prevost's wife marries Aaron Burr. And that's why Aaron Burr, when he left the United States after the trial, when he was found to be behind the secession plot in 1807, to create you heard about the 1807 secession plot that Aaron Burr ran, right?
Oh yeah. I was actually just looking at it right here. Finish your thought, and then I'll go where I was going to go with it.
Well, after that trial, they didn't have enough smoking gun evidence at the time, so he didn't go to jail, though he should have, for being a British agent running this attempted secession of the United States around this Western breakaway that would have also involved getting the U.S. into an early war with Spain to take control of Florida and New Orleans at that time, 1807. He ended up going to Britain, but to get to Britain, because everybody hated this guy. They hated this guy so badly. He tried to, part of this plan involved him deposing Thomas Jefferson and installing him as a new emperor. But he went to Canada first, where George Prevost was the Governor General of Canada, his nephew. And I was always wondering to myself, how did his nephew become the Governor General of Canada, who then gave him letters of introduction to go to Jeremy Bentham and Lord Castlereagh in England, which is what he did. And he was allowed to live in Jeremy Bentham's home, the head of British intelligence, which he did for 5 years until the War of 1812, when he was sent back in a week before the War of 1812 began. But he was there for 5 years. So how the hell did his nephew become George Prevost? And then I realized, it was because he married James Prevost's wife, and her son was made the Governor General of British Canada, who's the guy who then support. And the Prevosts, have just been a very big, I think actually the current Pope might be a Prevost, I'm not sure. But the Prevosts have been a big Genoa family from that were part of the what's called the Committee of 200, the governing council of Genoa, the sort of sister city to Venice, which it has been for many. This is one of the Crusader management
That's where Christopher Columbus was from as well. Christopher Columbus was from Genoa, so they're just not. That's another one of their claim to fame. Despite sailing for Spain, he was actually technically Italian. So okay, this is where it gets a little weird, and this is more of just like maybe just coincidence or hive mind or whatever. But as you were talking, when you kept saying 1826, I was sitting there in my head. I was like, 1826, something really important happened that year. I can't quite remember what it was, but I thought it was related to Andrew Jackson. I mean, that's the year Thomas Jefferson died. But that wasn't the reason I was thinking of it. And so while you were talking, I pulled up Andrew Jackson's Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is a very flimsy source. Like I don't like I only like to use it when I know that when I've gone down the rabbit holes, and I'm only using it for the sake of being concise, as opposed to like using it as a reference.
Yeah.
But 1826 doesn't appear anywhere on his his Wikipedia. That doesn't mean anything because a lot of stuff gets omitted or even misrepresented. But what was weird is as I was just kind of skimming through real quick as I was listening to you run through that, I was at this part. When you said that, I was at this part just skimming through, and I was reading about how, or just skimming through the part where Jackson was asked by Burr to join him on this quest out west, and he was kind of suspicious of it, and he was like, "Okay," but he like sends a letter to Jefferson saying, "I'm ready to defend," as he says right here, "I'm ready to defend," like Tennessee's ready to defend the nation's honor, and then eventually when Jefferson puts out the order to arrest Burr for treason, he's Jackson with his militia that he had formed with Burr, arrests him, like because they're right there with him, and so they arrest him and the conspirators, and that's how Burr was brought to justice, was by Andrew Jackson. But the reason I thought that is because Andrew Jackson was elected president in 1828. He lost the election of 1824. I knew that. And I knew that he had created the Democrat Party sometime in sometime between those two elections. Turns out the Democrat Party. So I was like, maybe he created the Democrat Party in 1826. No, he created it in 1828, apparently. So I don't know. There was something about 1826 that I thought had something to do with Andrew Jackson and the banks, but I'm not finding it now. So that could just be, I apologize for taking us in that little.
No. That's actually
it's weird that I was like reading about Burr, or I was like skimming through Burr, and then you said, and she was married. She married Aaron Burr. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. So anyway, but I saw real quick. I saw that our friend Warhamster Brady is in the chat, and Brady, welcome. He says he's finally able to catch a live show, and I hope I can go back and find the comment because it was a good comment. It looks like it might have already gotten erased, or gotten passed. But what he said was he was asked to be on a round table tomorrow to discuss the Charlie Kirk thing, that he has more questions than answers.
Yeah. And
that's such a great, it's a very Brady Warhamster thing to say. And I would encourage everyone to have that approach. I was going to go, like yesterday, I spent like an hour and a half of my 2-hour geopolitical show kind of running through my take on Charlie Kirk. You can go listen to that if you want, but I was going to do that on Friday. And then as the show was starting, I just decided not to, because I was like, you know what? There's no rush to do this. And it's better to just sit back and observe and see what happens next. And what I observed, of course, in the following days was what appears to be a push by certain people in the quote unquote conservative MAGA Republican Party movement to push like a Patriot Act 2.0. Like I saw like the calls for censorship. We saw the digital lynch mobs going around doing the whole cancel culture thing against people who were cackling in delight over Charlie Kirk being killed. I have no problem with people who make those decisions to post that stuff online, which is despicable. Losing their jobs, I have no problem with employers saying, I don't want you associated with me. The whole lynch mob, digital lynch mob thing is the thing that makes me a little uncomfortable, because that power grab, the extrajudicial power grab, is a slippery slope that gets out of control very quickly.
Oh yeah.
So the point is that I would just hope everyone adopts Warhamster's posture and just be open and ask questions. Don't just take, the first compelling thing that you see. I mentioned how I saw that thing about the bullet coming from a different angle and thought that was very compelling. It doesn't mean that I'm adopting it as my official stance. It's like taking data, and just be constantly analyzing. But sometimes it's better to step back and observe and just see what everyone else is doing, as opposed to like stepping forward and asserting yourself and asserting your opinion, because you'll learn a lot more if you just observe and ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the effect is the key, not to like jump the gun and come to like some crystallized answer, because there's so much ambiguity and layers upon layers of games within games and narrative games. So we really do need to like withhold final judgment on things, but definitely observe as much as possible. And the other thing is, just take note that you have things like the Charlie Kirk Amendment, or Act, as they call it, which will hold media outlets, radio stations, educators, and content creators accountable for false narratives and erroneous info. I mean, that was kind of like what the left was doing on the COVID issue, was trying to hold whole media platforms to blame if they allow for unacceptable opinions on their platform. So instead of actually holding the individual accountable for things that they do, it's now they're incentivizing shutting down, under the veil of, it's private, it's Twitter, it's X, it's this social media platform, it's YouTube that's just doing it. It's not the it's not the state, it's not the shadow government doing it, but actually you're creating a situation where you're forcing more censorship, but now under something that a lot of conservatives are thinking, well, that's they're censoring the people I don't like, so now that's okay. Or like Pam Bondi here, I got this 30-second speech or comment in an interview that people should just be reminded of how dangerous this can get. But here it is. This is Pam Bondi.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Yeah, great. That won't go bad. Like,
yeah.
Congratulations
to there, Bondi. You sound like a leftist now. Now, look, to play devil's advocate, there's an interesting point that was made by people in our balance chat. Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire had put out like this statement this post that had gone viral before she did this, where basically he was calling for this, but on a extra judicial level, like basically like the digital lynch mob. And then John Harold had reposted it with a clip of Matt Walsh from back a few years ago when the left was doing this, and Matt was talking about how no matter what you say, there shouldn't be digital lynch mobs coming after you. Effectively, like that was what his message was. And I think John's post was like, Matt Walsh should debate Matt Walsh on this. And then of course Pam Bondi comes out, says that, and then Matt Walsh does like a mea culpa and does a repost saying, whoa, maybe we're taking this too far. Maybe we need to step back a minute. I wasn't calling for this. So, if you want to play, like, just again, keeping your mind open, so many things Pam Bondi has done, I just kind of shake my head being like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. But what were they cutting this thing off at the head and kind of like running it to its logical conclusion? And now all of a sudden people like Matt Walsh are stepping back and saying, maybe we shouldn't take this so far. I don't know. Throwing it out there. But that clip, like out of context, out of that context, that clip is despicable. And I think we need to do everything we can to fight against the emotions of the moment. And that's exactly why standing back and observing in these moments and keeping the powder dry and not fueling the fire and not dumping fuel on the fire and like giving into our emotions is the move right now.
Yeah, like you listen to people who are not doing that, like Laura Loomer, and some of her messaging that she's been putting out to her massive following
she's always like that.
Oh my God. Like she's literally saying that I don't have it in front of me, but that the left has been calling us fascists. Well, let's act like fascists then in that case. Let's give them what they want.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Or the other one too is Nick Fuentes. really going off, basically trying to put out a lot of his messaging. He's already been nudging people in this direction, but saying like, where are the Christians? Where are the Romans? Trying to like fuse the ancient, the Roman legionnaire class as the most dignified thing as Christian, as if they were, but they weren't, because they were members, they were initiates of the Order of Mithra, the Praetorian Guard and the legionnaires. But he's infusing this idea that to be a true Christian is to be a true Roman. To be a true Roman is to be a true, and he's like, where are the white people? Where are the tribes? And then putting out messaging in that type of narrative to try to inflame this victimhood. Like, we are the suppressed. We are the ones being suppressed now. We've lost our dignity and we have to fight back against our oppressors. But who is our oppressors? Because it's partially true. That's why these things work. But he doesn't bring up the global international financier interest. He doesn't bring up the global bloodlines that have been like managing mystery cults to try to enslave us into new feudalism. No, he in his world, it's the immigrants, the immigrants who have been coming in and taking our land, taking our rights away, and taking our privileges away, and making us second-class citizens. And we have to fight back against. And that's the exact same messaging that's being fed by the New Templars in England, by Tommy Robinson. When you listen to the type of like sophistry and the rhetoric that's being like, they always avoid the actual this giant thing that's staring us in the face, this like interconnected set of families that have been trying to restore global feudalism and manage the world out of a depopulated world that's fighting each other. They just avoid that and try to bring it down to whether it's the Muslims, whether it's the Jews, whether it's the left, whether messages are similar when they're catered to the left to make them hate the right. And then the left are shown pictures of clear, like, the Patriot Front group marching as like white supremacists who are clearly fed. I mean, they have like matching khaki uniforms. They're all like wearing face masks and American flags, marching in lockstep with no audience through Washington, D.C. They pop up now and again, right? And then that's what's being fed on MSNBC, the left media, to try to give the left the psychological sense that, oh, that's why you need to like pick up an AK if you're, a gay rights activist or a queer activist. You got to like take shooting lessons now. And then or you get the Atomwaffen SS with Jason Sutter, who was found in 2018 to have been receiving like $180,000 of money from the FBI between 2003 and 2018. This is the guy that runs the Atomwaffen SS in America, like a big neo.
What is that? Is that
the Atomwaffen SS is a subsidiary of the Temple of Blood.
Okay.
And
but like on its surface, how does it present itself? Does it present itself as like it's like a white nationalist movement or something? Or
okay. It's like a David Duke friendly organization, and it's also tied. It uses the Temple of Blood that he also is the high priest of. Uses the exact same symbol as the Order of the Nine Angles, which is again what one of the that disposable kid that killed his parents or something and was like driving to prepare or to try to spark a war between the US and Russia by trying to kill Trump, was at least the official story. Remember that kid? He was like 18 years old or something. The Order of the Nine Angles.
Didn't like ChatGPT or some AI like tell him to do it? Wasn't that what wasn't?
I don't know if that was the same kid.
Was that a different? Am I conflating all of my psyops now?
There's so many psyops. It's easy for them to become like a stew, but it's the Order of the Nine Angles. That's what I do know. I don't know if ChatGPT got in the action, but it does seem like a lot of these idiot disposable kids are recruited through Discord servers and different chat rooms, which are then radicalized, groomed, and then managed for different stage managed performances that they don't even know what the hell's going on half the time. I don't like this Luke Mangione kid. Seems like he was dismantled, like he comes from an upper crust family. The kid who shot the United Health CEO or COO. This kid appears to be, appears to have been targeted. He was obsessed with numerology. He was seeing certain patterns of numbers 287 everywhere. He was like obsessed with these numbers that were, and it's like he was on a quest. Like if people watch the movie, the A24 movie Under the Silver Lake, I actually recommend it. If you want to get
Oh
into this.
yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. I've actually heard that's a good movie. I think maybe you were the one who told me it's a good movie.
I think I told you. Yeah, I'm encouraging people to watch some of these A24 like predictive programming movies because it's like high quality predictive programming garbage.
A24?
It's the film studio that made like the Civil War movie. Which if you look at the Civil War movie, that takes place, let's say, in like...
I just recently watched that. Yeah, I just recently watched that. Yeah.
High value, because that's the sort of... They're putting out exactly what the game plan is. They're showing you the recipe book, and it's predictive programming. That's what these things are.
And the way that movie ended, I'm not going to like spoil it, but the way that movie ended was like, it's like, okay, so just everything is like sociopathy and nihilism.
Yes. Yeah, the best you can be is like an objective voyeur.
An objective. That's exactly how I would put it. An objective voyeur for sociopathic nihilism. That's like the most noble thing that you could become, basically.
Yeah. And like there's nobody is good. There's nobody virtuous anywhere in that movie, but you have obviously the audiences being groomed to catharsize or to sympathize more with the clear like Antifa militia groups that are those are the ones who at least have heart. The Trump-esque radical right mercenaries.
President is presented as the villain like throughout the whole movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we won't spoil it, but yeah, definitely want these sorts of A24 movies. I really think people should watch it just to get a sense of the game plan. Again, Under the Silver Lake, I think would take people into the sort of psychology of a Luke Mangione. As far as what
now I need to watch it.
Yeah, definitely watch it. And I think there's a lot more in there we could talk about when you do watch it. But all that to say, it's like that's the game plan. And then I got things because I'm like a part of my the thing I've been keeping my finger on as a pulse has been this whole satanic underground within Catholicism. There have been good Catholics, no doubt. Love John F. Kennedy, love Bobby Kennedy. Good Catholics throughout history. I'm a big fan of St. Augustine, but
I know a lot of good Catholics too. Yeah, my dad's side is they're all Irish Catholics. So yeah,
right. So many good Catholics throughout history. That being said, there's also, as you said, skin suits being worn, Catholic skin suits by satanic forces that have a continuity of existence to the ancient mystery cults that were like managing much of the world before Christianity even emerged. And there's something that is being revived that is very much based on what the Templars were doing. And I do think that they were into some nasty Gnostic sex magic and other things that might involve demons like Baphomet that were being worshipped. But you got some bizarre things that Candace Owens has also put out. Like right after Charlie Kirk was murdered, she puts out this. It's 12 seconds or 20 seconds long.
I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass. One of my last conversations with Charlie was me joking with him saying, just make the last step. Okay. You are, I said specifically, you're too smart to be a Protestant. Just take the last step, Charlie. He says, ha ha. He was speaking about Mary.
Strange messaging from Candace here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my take on Candace at this moment in time, especially after what we went through last week, very, very timely that came up, and I became so animated over it. But it feels like narratives are being co-opted. It feels like things that are worth pursuing, ideas that are worth pursuing. I can pull up a General Flynn post. Let me pull that up actually, that he made last night. Things that are worth pursuing and exploring that are not definitive. Again, like I just would encourage everyone, do not get locked into any definitive outcome at this moment in time. I spent an hour and a half running through yesterday what I think is one of the more plausible explanations, only because it checks all the boxes of explaining why the things that we're witnessing happening now are happening, right? And that doesn't mean it's definitive. It's all still circumstantial. I just can't find another angle, including this disaffected tranny angle that checks any of the boxes. It maybe checks one thing, but it's a very small box. They didn't like Charlie because Charlie was, the anti-LGBTQ stuff, right? It's like, that's just not, it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me to like I understand there are ideologues out there, and I understand there are people who are deranged and who are going to engage in like psychotic behavior. But that thing was done with like military precision. I mean, there was a precision conducted there, and the fact that he got away, and it took, basically he was going to get away if it weren't for, allegedly his dad turning him in, right? Very strange, very, very strange. So I just wanted to share that General Flynn did put this out last night. Let me see. It's first. Well, first, I think maybe we should put out. I should go to this post about that he put out, which was last week. I think it was on September 11th.
Well, while you're pulling it up here, what I could do is read an ad from Tamar Gardens on your.
Let's go ahead and do an ad read, and I'll pull these up.
All right. Introducing Tamar Gardens handcrafted herbal remedies, teas, and skincare. Made with weeds, wildflowers, and wild harvested herbs in the Pacific Northwest, their products will heal your skin, boost collagen, lighten dark spots, and slow aging. Plus, it is safe for babies, grandmas, and everyone in between. From salves for headaches, bug bites, and arthritis to supplements for liver and kidney health, they harness God's bounty for your health and to keep you out of the doctor's office. Family owned in North Idaho, Tamar Gardens dermatologist recommended products support your body inside and out because your health deserves better. Visit tamargarden.com today, and with promo code Badlands, you will get free shipping on orders over $35. That's tamargarden.com, promo code Badlands. And there, it's still going. I read that way too fast. But Cynthia has used these products, and she testifies to their effectiveness. And very, very cool batch of incredible products from these guys. So the other thing too,
I met them at Deadwood, and they're great people.
Me too.
I was saying that yesterday on my show. They're fantastic, and they're very knowledgeable, and just very good people. So we want to support good people who share our values, and I can testify that they are that. So yes, and they're very receptive to questions. If you reach out to them asking questions, they will answer whatever questions you have. So
yeah, they're awesome human beings. It's I was super impressed just getting to know them. The last thing here is there's the third ad, but I didn't actually upload it proper, or it didn't upload properly, so we'll have to wait on that one. But
okay.
Yeah, did you find the quote from General Flynn?
I thought I had it. I have a post right here. Let me pull up this one. So here, like, this is this is 7:30 in the morning that Charlie was shot. So this is before Charlie was shot. And he says, American leadership and our top leaders must be extremely steady right now, given the global situation, and especially situation in Europe. The EU strongly desires a direct conflict with Russia and will pull every card, play any trick to find a way to drag NATO into a much more direct conflict. We must find a peaceful way out of this war. Europe's globalist views are collapsing. They know it. They can see it in their own populations who grow more war weary and restless by the day. In fact, globalism is dying, but it's not it's not dead yet. Steady, everyone, and pray our leaders do the right thing and make the right decisions. The long-term consequences are unknown, but war isn't the solution. Nonetheless, there are viable solutions. Now, that's not the one that I went out looking for. I was going out looking for this post, which was made after Charlie was assassinated, where he says that we need to be careful that there might be, right here. He says, if it is determined that a foreign power assassinated Charlie Kirk. Well, first, let me just go back to his initial post right after Charlie's shot. He says, today and tomorrow, our country will be and should be fall silent in anguish and disbelief. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's very long. But he says, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and say a prayer for those close to Charlie Kirk, especially his wife and kids, as we all reminded what is most important in life. So I think that's the important thing to do, is just take a deep breath and don't become overly emotional at anything, even after, even a week out, a month out, whatever. Don't allow your emotions to manipulate what you're getting into. the next day, September 11th, he posts, if it is determined that a foreign power assassinated Charlie Kirk or was behind the assassination, there should be hell to pay. It is now being reported by the FBI that this is a possibility. And that was John Solomon was putting that out there, that there was some foreign intelligence information that still has not been clarified yet. He says, if this is true, there will most certainly be other hit teams in CONUS who are focused on other targets. The White House needs to inform the American people ASAP what they know. Local law enforcement across the country better have already received a bolo. Be on the lookout with as many specific details as possible. Don't kid yourself. There is a war on in America, and everything and everyone we hold dear is at risk. And then he goes on to tag, members of the administration. But the post that he put out last night that I wanted to bring to your attention is aligns with what I discussed on my show yesterday. And that is this one, where he says this timeline and set of statements have to be part of any serious investigation. And then he tags, Pam Bondi and others. And the post he's referencing comes from Jackson Hinkle, who Jackson Hinkle is claims to be a MAGA communist, which to me is like, okay, like you must be a psyop yourself. And his like profile pictures is him at like some sort of an HBO premiere. So it's like, all right, like you attend HBO premieres. That's very strange. Something about him doesn't feel quite right. Despite the fact that he puts out some things that I've seen that I agree with. But that's the case with many of these people out there. I agree with some of the things they say, but they also say things that make him glow. Mm-hmm. But he just runs through a long list of things that some of which I discussed on my show yesterday, a timeline that basically is implicating Israel potentially as, building motive for why Israel would have taken out Charlie Kirk. And I happen to agree with that line of thinking. I've been very critical of Charlie Kirk on this show, on my other shows, because of his specific positions, but two being his position on his like never ending loyalty to Israel, regardless of what they do. And the fact in his election integrity stuff doesn't feel quite right to me. The Scott Pressler, like ballot harvesting thing doesn't pass a sniff test for me and others. But what I have learned over like looking at stuff since last week, that in the past like month or two, since the Turning Point event in Tampa on July 11th through 13th, he seems to have been, there's evidence that he was basically breaking from the lockstep with Netanyahu and like the official narrative. And there, we don't need to go down that full rabbit hole right now. I did it on my show yesterday. So you can go watch that if you really want the hour-and-a-half version. But it's interesting that of all people, General Flynn is putting it out there, because General Flynn, of course, is also somebody who's always been highly complimentary of Israel and very, very loyal and supportive of Israel. So for him to boost this message resonates. It's kind of like when Steve Bannon, after Iran was attacked by Israel, Bannon ever since then has been very anti-Israel. That resonates because before that event, he's always been very pro-Israel, Again, none of this stuff is definitive. These are just data points you just have to take in and make note of, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if I was sharing my screen the whole time.
I had your screen shared.
Sorry, I was on a different tab.
I got your back.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that brings us maybe to like this civil war that I was talking about before, which I think has been brewing for a long time. We've been talking about it on Badlands for a while now, like the civil war within MAGA, the civil war within the Republican Party, the fight for the heart and soul of America, I would say, for control of the future, because I think the Democrat Party is a dead brand. And I don't mean anything in like other than just the fact that it's a destroyed brand, right? The brand is just it's like unsalvageable. I don't think they're going to win a national election if we have free and fair elections, which I don't think we have evidence of that right now. They're not going to win another free and fair election here for a while because of all the things that they've done over the past 5 years. Therefore, as I've been saying and others have been saying for at least the past year or two, it's the Republican Party that we have to be careful of now. The Republican Party is the thing that's going to be weaponized against us, just like it was weaponized against us in the wake of 9/11. And, you know, getting back to the Israel thing, I had filmmaker Adam Riva from Dauntless Dialogue on my show Monday night on the Book of Trump. He just created a new documentary called A Clean Break, which focuses on the clean break doctrine. I don't know if you're familiar with this. The paper, the document that was commissioned by Bibi Netanyahu in 1996 from a neocon, a Washington-based think tank, like neocon think tank, which basically developed the U.S. foreign policy to overthrow Saddam Hussein. And then in 1998, the Republican Party passed legislation that made it official U.S. foreign policy. I think it was HR. I can't remember the number, but it was signed into law by Bill Clinton, not by a Republican president, on I think it was October 31st, 1998, and it made it the official foreign policy of the United States that Saddam Hussein would be overthrown. His government would be overthrown. And then, of course, 3 years later, 9/11, for whatever reason, despite the fact that Al-Qaeda is blamed for it, which turned out not to be true, we go into Iraq and overthrow Saddam Hussein. So again, like, none of this stuff makes sense, but because we all gave in to the emotion of the moment, we allowed ourselves to be led by the nose to this really horrible place, which resulted in millions of people dying, innocent people dying, global catastrophes occurring, whole regions being thrown into destabilizing chaos, and we're still dealing with the afterquake, so to speak, of that decision that was made in a really, really bad moment where we were all highly traumatized and giving into our worst human emotions and human instincts, right, for revenge and fear and all that kind of stuff. So it feels to me that we're living through 9/11 all over again. This whole thing, and the fact, I mean, it's not lost on me that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I say executed at this point, because I kind of think some of the people who were what we would describe maybe as his handlers, his donors, benefited the most from, I think I heard you say earlier, who benefits the most? That's what I've been asking myself for the past week. Who benefits the most? Who benefits the most from this? Mm-hmm. And the left does not benefit the most from this. In fact, I would argue the left is going to effectively be erased. At least the fringe far left is going to be erased from society, from the culture, at least. As a cultural institution, it's going to be eradicated now. But what we have to be careful of is we have to be careful that this thing isn't built into a straw man that we then go tackle, and then it just evaporates into dust, and we think we've accomplished something when really we've just been sent on, we're Don Quixote, jousting with windmills. We just have to be sure we're not getting played right now, because we're being told by official sources that this was a radicalized ideology that is relatively new to us. I mean, this whole woke left thing is only 10 years old. Al-Qaeda was only 13 years old. It was created in 1988. And so when 9/11 happened, it was only about 13 years old, about the same age as this radical woke left thing. Yeah. That was blamed for it. And so something that we don't have, we think we really know it because we've been focused on it for several years now. But, if this thing gets destroyed now because of Charlie Kirk's assassination, then it's okay, they built it up for 10 years only for us to wipe it away. And then we feel catharsis because we've accomplished something, but have we actually accomplished something, right? Or have we basically been led by the nose back into the slaughterhouse by, the acolytes of George Bush, the people who would otherwise be in the George Bush administration, right? That's what this feels like. It feels like we are being played by the Uni-Party. And again, I think people, especially people who aren't familiar with my content and my way of thinking, think when I say that I'm implicating Donald Trump in all of this, and I'm not. My running thesis, and this has been my thesis for since the election at this point, and even really longer than that. But really, once he started appointing people, I was like, okay, this is what it feels like. He's opened up the war tent, and he's let the proverbial, he's let like the enemies in to sit at the proverbial war council with him, right? And Sun Tzu would describe these people as reverse spies. There's 5 different kinds of spies. The doomed spy is the spy that you let into your war tent because you know he's working for the other guy, and basically you just feed him bad information, and then you allow him to expose himself, right? So that's a doomed spy. So I think that's what some of these people are like maybe represent. And I don't know who these people are. I'm not like prepared to assign specific characters these labels, but that's one of the 5 spies that Sun Tzu says. Sun Tzu says these 5 spy types are the most important people, the most important figures in any military. The most important apparatus in any military is your intelligence apparatus, because it's what prevents kinetic conflict. It's your intelligence gathering force. And the 5 types, one of them is the doomed spy. The other one is the reverse spy. The reverse spy is the spy that you let into your war tent. You know he's working for the enemy, but you either through bribery or coercion, or through, like, I think what Sun Tzu says is the best way to win him over is through endearment. If you can actually convince him to have a change of heart by showing him that by helping you as opposed to remaining loyal to his master, he's going to have a better life, because you're not only are you going to win this conflict, but he's going to have a better position, because he's not going to be the dog of his master. He's going to be whatever,
a discount, or
exactly. So, you know, the more I've looked into Charlie Kirk, I'm wondering if that's what happened with Charlie Kirk, because I have firmly established many times that I think Charlie Kirk was deployed against Donald Trump in 2016. There are clips of him on Fox News where he is decrying Donald Trump and saying, you know, there's no way Donald Trump can lead us. He can't unite us. He's terrible. We should back Ted Cruz, like that kind of thing. And then months later, he's going to the Republican National Convention, and according to his own accounts, plastering himself to Don Jr., offering to become Don Jr.'s valet, carry his bags, get him Diet Cokes, all those things. And that gets him in the Trump camp. And then basically he's part of the Trump team after that. But I'm wondering if through that experience, he came to become endeared by the Trumps. He learned that maybe the Trumps aren't the people that his donors told him that they were. And maybe just through his own observations, he realized that the Trumps were the best. Like if you want to believe that Charlie Kirk is an earnest actor and a good guy and a good soul, maybe he came to realize that the Trumps represent the best opportunity we have to actually save the country if they succeed in their mission. And so maybe he saw them as an exit ramp from whatever it was he had gotten himself involved in. And there is, I mean, looking at Turning Point USA, there are definitely some good figures who were involved in it, like Jeannie Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, was involved in it. And there are others who I think were like genuinely good people, but there are also some pretty nefarious figures who.
On that note, I was just listening to Chuck Grassley deliver a testimony on the FBI Operation Arctic Frost regarding the FBI's involvement in infiltrating and shaping a lot of the activities in the Turning Point USA. And I'll just play a part of the Chuck Grassley speech just so people, you know, take it in empirically here. And keep in mind, as you hear this, think about COINTELPRO. Think about what J. Edgar Hoover, who oversaw 8 presidents as the head of America's secret police operation. Think about what he did with COINTELPRO to destroy and undermine the efforts or the movements that Martin Luther King was leading, or Malcolm X, or any number of civil rights leaders who saw their movements, who died in many cases, and then who saw their movements get radicalized, turn into bomb-throwing, violent organizations that were then able to justify more government crackdown. So just, you know, hold that in mind. But this is Chuck Grassley here just talking about Operation Arctic Frost.
American gangs like MS-13. Now, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provided me about Arctic frost. Arctic frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic frost then became Jack Smith's Electra case against then citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney General's Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. So today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see, and I hope a lot of people are interested in seeing what government can do when various agencies have a political agenda.
Yeah, I'll just stop it there. It goes on for a little bit longer, but I mean, again, just
your mic. Switch your mic back.
Yes, sir. Hey, you're right. Yeah, it went to default. Crap, mic. Okay.
I can always tell just because like the echo comes in and it's not as clean.
Yeah, no, this is you're good, man. Thank you. Yeah, so it goes on a little bit longer, but yeah, just to get across that there are subversive elements that have been infiltrating everything that we take for granted as far as movements, universities, think tanks, you name it. And when you look at the origins of, I mean, I don't know how Kash Patel is dealing with this. I mean, this is like a multi-generational monster that's been built up. And as I mentioned, COINTELPRO is something that led to the murder of Fred Hampton. It infused all sorts of not just informants, but also people who became leaders within targeted organizations that would be seen as a threat to the new imperial order that certain figures around Ellen Dulles had in mind to transform the American Republic into this, globally oriented hegemon. So any type of potential movement that might disrupt that had to be infiltrated and radicalized to then basically make it useful. It's the same thing that Bibi Netanyahu did when he was advocating giving support to Hamas over the PLO.
Yep.
And a lot of these is the idea is if you radicalize an organization, get rid of the level-headed moderates who are able to think about economic collaboration with their neighbor, get rid of them, either kill them or just diminish them by prompting up more charismatic, violent reactionary figures like, let's say, a Stokely Carmichael, who's then brought in to then try to take control and then get the peace-oriented movement that Martin Luther King was leading into becoming more like inclined for an eye type of logic. Then you can have a more predictable enemy that will justify again more national crackdown, and those agencies that have been infiltrating the nation through the banking system and the intelligence agencies get the support of the people who then beg for a new Patriot Act 2.0. They beg for a reduction of their civil liberties in order to have security because they're just now more inclined to be afraid of violent gangs, of riots, of other things that that's Operation Gladio. That's the years of lead of Italy, right? You just drive the people into the warm, comfortable embrace of fascist governments.
Polarize. Yeah, and that makes it easier to turn the country on itself. Yeah, no, for sure. By the way, like the whole the PLO Hamas thing is become like the official policy effectively of Trump's State Department, despite the fact that Donald Trump in May of 2017 at a White House, like on camera, promised Mahmoud Abbas that he was going to help him figure this out. He was going to basically help him liberate Palestine from Netanyahu. So, again, like that just goes back to my theory that I think Trump is just I think basically during the Biden administration, we watched the Democrat brand be destroyed. Now we are watching the destruction of the Republican brand. That's just my opinion. I think the Republican brand is being destroyed right now. It's being totally diminished and tarnished. And it's necessary because if you don't do that, you're going to be stuck with a Uni-Party because nobody's ever going to support the Democrats again. I mean, a small percentage of people will, but not enough to have a 50-50 split where they can convince people that, 49% voted for this guy and 51% voted for this guy. No, not with that branding that the Democrats have adopted. They've become too far radicalized. Right. But I do want to address something because I think that this is important. This is something that I get that comes up all the time. It came up yesterday, and I'm not picking on this person. I'm really glad you said this because this conversation is very important. T. Gretzky says, "Come on, Ghost. A lot of conservatives, myself included, were wary of Trump and favored a known conservative Cruz at that time. I had not completely red-pilled it." That is, you're 100% right, and I want to address that because that is such an important point. Look, I personally was all in on Trump in 2012 when he was talking about running for president because I had become so disillusioned with the political system during Obama, particularly the Tea Party. I looked at the Tea Party in 2010 and was like, this is like a toothless organization. This is an organization that has great ideas, but they don't have the tenacity to actually do anything. I saw the tenacity on the left. I saw the tenacity of Obama was this great orator, but there was a tenacity of the ground game, a tenacity of these celebrities who were backing him, who were willing to say and do things that nobody on the right was willing to counter. Where it was, I was like, you're going to get wiped out because you don't have tenacity. And Donald Trump, I saw the tenacity, which is why I liked him because he was willing to be provocative and say things that made people uncomfortable, right? And I'll admit that there were moments where he would say things I was like, well, I don't know if I completely agree with that, but man, I generally like him enough that I can deal with some of the things he says that don't quite make sense in the moment. But then later it's okay, well, he's not even following through on that. So I've watched every wave of supporter come. I've watched every wave come in since then. I totally get that people were not bought in, and I don't hold people accountable if they weren't all in 2016 or 2018 or 20. I mean, some of the most ardent, best people I know didn't even become Trump supporters till 2020, right? Chris Paul, really came on board 2019, 2020, and he is literally one of the best political philosophers I think that's out there. Period. Paragraph. Okay, so. I don't hold that against anybody, but let's understand something of what happened here. What I just laid out, and I'm not going to play the clips because I played them yesterday on my show. I can play you a clip from April of 2016, and you can listen to what Charlie Kirk says. And if you want to take him at his word, he is viciously attacking Donald Trump. And then 3.5 months later, goes to Cleveland, and according to his own account later, says plastered himself to Don Jr. and offered to become his valet. Okay?
Yes.
If he actually meant what he said about Donald Trump in April, how does he go from saying that in April to 3.5 months later, basically begging his son to become his assistant? And at the same time, he's running a multinational, multi-million, becoming a multi-billion-dollar NGO. I'm sorry, but that's a fairy tale. If you believe that, then you're watching a Disney movie. We're not watching the same thing unfold. Okay. So again, we have to be we have to keep ourselves tethered to the planet Earth here and understand that now, again, that doesn't mean that like Charlie Kirk wasn't acting in earnest. I think probably what was happening was a 22-year-old was being influenced by older people, a room full of adults that he respected, who were saying things about Donald Trump. And he respected these people enough that he took them at their word. And they were painting a picture of Donald Trump. Well, he's going to do this. If we let Trump become president, he's going to do this. He's going to do that. And then once it became clear that Trump was going to be the candidate, they were like, all right, well, if Trump's going to be the candidate, we need to make sure that we have our thumb on the scale. We need to have one hand on the wheel to make sure he doesn't go in the direction that we can't follow. By the way, in the clip that I play from April of 2016, Charlie criticizes Trump because Trump had said that he wanted to punish women for getting abortions. How ironic is that now, 10 years later, thinking about that Donald Trump suggested that we punish women for abortions, and Charlie Kirk was up in arms about that, saying that it was wrong to do that. It was wrong to punish women for seeking abortions. I'm pretty sure he probably would disagree with himself. But again, he was a 22-year-old kid. What does a 22-year-old know about the world? Very little. Despite the fact that I think Charlie Kirk is very intelligent and was an old soul, I recognize all that. So the point is this. Again, keeping an open mind. If you want to think that Charlie Kirk was acting in earnest the whole way through, I think that tracks. I think that maps. If you want to think that Turning Point USA was founded as this organic thing and was like done with good intentions and with a good heart, and then maybe was co-opted by COINTEL, like you just said, like Arctic Frost, there's a mapping for that too. Like, I don't think you have to be dead set in one path where it's like
it could have been founded by agencies that have ill intentions and then influenced by those same agencies, because you'll attract, patriotic organizations will attract a lot of good people, and those good people might cause it to break out of its molding, and they need to be kept in line. And so there's a variety of things. It doesn't always have to be a binary,
exactly
one or the other.
Dude, if you're the CIA and you're recognizing in 2011, 2012 that the Tea Party movement is dying, because it was like the Tea Party movement was stalling out because it really lacked the teeth that I was talking about. It had great ideas, it just didn't really have the leadership. Ron Paul was like the leader of the movement, and he was like he was old, and again, like, just not quite charismatic. He wasn't Donald Trump. He wasn't Donald Trump. Yep. Love Ron Paul, by the way. Like, love Ron Paul. I'm very disappointed in what Rand's become, but I love Ron Paul. So I want to be very clear about that. But he just didn't have the charisma that Donald Trump has. Like, if you're the CIA or one of those agencies and you wanted to capture that audience, Turning Point USA is a really logical step to do that, right? And by the way, to make it like authentic, you go out and you find authentic people to be the frontmen for it. And you basically set up a situation where they think they're doing something in earnest, but really, there's an invisible hand at work. So again, all of these different possible things.
This also brings up
possible.
like, yeah, exactly. Like, we often run into the trap, and I think Hollywood films didn't help our minds appreciate nuance, but we will tend to go for black and white, simple narratives of heroes and villains in a very overly simplistic fashion. Not to say that there aren't heroes and villains, but we often too quickly try to impose a black-white narrative onto things. And, I was thinking a little bit about, the Candace Owens, because of our last week conversation. It's been on my mind. But that's what we talked about as well, is that her husband, George, whatever his last name is, Lord George, he was actually a founder, a co-founder, and lead in both Turning Point UK, the UK sister organization to Turning Point USA, and worked very closely with Bannon in a number of directions as well. Whom, me, I don't trust Bannon for a variety of reasons that we've talked about,
and that's fine. That's fine. There's fair criticisms that I can acknowledge. Like, I totally get that. So. Yeah.
So I'm just like, my mind is really looking at this sort of Catholic fascist subterfuge that has been infiltrating and taking over the legitimate Catholic organizations, especially in the last, since 1870 with Vatican I, I would say, which imposed this infallibility of the Pope doctrine, which was super self-destructive to the entire papacy as a whole. Like, the entire idea that an individual, who's ever sitting there, is infallible. that disillusioned so many people. And it also created a nice ripe field for massive corruption, because now anything you do, if you're like touching the seat of power, is all of a sudden like, no matter how much evil you engage with, you're good if you have the blessing of the Pope. So that's a problem. Like, that opens up a ton of mental and moral corruption. We had, like, if you look at it, the murder of the 30-day Pope in John the First, an attempted murder of John the Second in 1981. But after 30 days, I mean, come on, the guy was killed in 1978. They made a little bit of they infused a little bit of that storyline in a Delphic, I would say, dishonest manner in the Godfather Part 3 film. I guess that was Ford Coppola or Scorsese. That was Ford Coppola, I think. Where, they bring in certain truths about the P2 Lodge, the Freemasonic, Italian P2 Lodge, which is, running Operation Gladio. But of course, they're also legitimizing a side of the mafia that should never be made legitimate in the first place. Like, the thing itself was always a part. It wasn't something outside of the system in that set of that famous trilogy of movies where Michael Corleone is trying to like save the life of the Pope and redeem himself and save his soul. He's treated as if he's like a legitimate player who's now only realizing that when you thought you were getting legitimate and, he donated $1 billion to the Vatican, now you're entering the real criminal satanic underworld. And it's like, no, the whole mafia operation was run by the associates of Albert Pike and the Scottish Rite that were setting up B'nai B'rith in the 1850s, and the like paramilitary Order of the Golden Circle that was what was transformed into the KKK as a paramilitary, pseudo-Christian nationalist organization that had a crusader ethos. They worshiped the idea of the Knights of Malta and the Order of the Sepulchre. Like, hell, if you look at it, the KKK took their famous, white pointy hats that they're famous for from, I'm just going to show a picture of this thing just to get this across to people, because it's hard to believe until you actually see it. But here, I'm going to show a little frame. Oh, let's do add to stage. This is like what the KKK are famous for, set up again by Albert Pike in 1865, the Confederate general, Golden Circle leader. So this uniform with burning crosses was actually taken from this uniform, which was, this is the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, set up in 1099 to manage the Crusades alongside the Knights Templar and the Knights of Malta. And it's like, that's where Pike was getting his inspiration. That's the flag of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. They still exist. There's like 60,000 of them today. This is what they do every Easter. So all that to say, like, these frigging orders have been infiltrating and taking control more and more, and trying to divert or redirect the Catholic Church towards becoming more of an instrument for imposing obedience on a superstitious, dumbed down, radicalized population that revives the type of ethos of going into forever wars to redeem the world of pagan, whether get rid of the Muslims, get rid of the whatever the pagan group is that's not like you, go to war. And it seems like there's been a fusion inside of the European oligarchies of things like the Anglican Church that were created in the same year as the Jesuits under Henry VIII. And the Anglican Church was sort of this, it has a lot in common with the Jesuit order, and they interfaced very closely internationally together in 1534. That's when both were created. And it seems like with the ascendancy of Pope Francis, who was the first Jesuit to take control of the Catholic Church, he massively both liberalized it on the one hand, but also infused it into more and more of a harmonious relationship with King Charles, then Prince Charles, and his influence over the Anglican Church. Because keep in mind, the Anglican Church has a pope, but the pope is not the same pope. The pope is literally who's ever sitting on the crown. So who's ever the sitting monarch is the head of the church. That's what Henry VIII oversaw. And Pope Francis and King Charles are both, environmentalist high priests. They both are absolutely committed to the Great Reset, to global decarbonization, and they both did a lot of work. Now, my fear right now, I'm just going to put this out there because my concern is that trap has been set, and I've been saying this again and again, and I hope that I'm wrong, but Donald Trump is now in the UK, right? As we speak, it's happening. He's in the UK. Fine. But why is he in the UK? Well, we haven't gotten a lot of details yet. There's definitely a lot of signal being put out with him like walking ahead of King Charles. It's unprecedented, where King Charles is like walking meekly behind him, and he's like overseeing the giving a tour of the UK guard with the funny hats. I think that there's a charm offensive going on right now, and I know that this has been going on for a while. Even in his first term, there's been a big charm offensive to try to persuade the United States to rejoin the Commonwealth. And I know that back in March, King Charles first formally put this out, and Trump's response was, sounds good to me.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hoping he's just playing along with it, but my fear is that they're playing him up and trying to give him a sense that he is going to be in charge. And maybe, the UK can't manage itself. Look at all of the riots. They're on the verge of civil war. They need a strong man to protect them. And my fear is that Charles is giving him this type of flattering messaging as a trap to get him to agree to get the US to sign on to becoming an associate member of the Commonwealth as part of the recapture of the USA, a la what Cecil Rhodes called for over a century ago, and what the Pilgrims have been devoted to achieving, which people like Tucker Carlson is a member of the Pilgrim Society, as is his father, as was Kissinger and many others, the Knight of Saint Michael and Saint George, Henry Kissinger, and George Bush, who is also a pilgrim and a member of the Saint Michael, Saint George knighthood, another Crusader knighthood, as was, tied to the Order of the Garter, which is what Hirohito was also initiated into, which is still there. It's a big, high-level order. So my fear is just that they're going to bring about some economic chaos, promote this civil war. We see it already bubbling away in Europe, but we're seeing it also potentially being something that could be amplified in the context of civic turmoil and economic chaos. And then out of the chaos, do what Aaron Burr was trying to do, which is to reabsorb the USA, undo the Constitution, and reabsorb it back into the British Empire, which is what the British ambassador Anthony Merry was writing to Jeremy Bentham in 1804, saying that he had gotten the service of Aaron Burr to do just that very thing. And that only came about later. Burr would have been in jail had that been known during his trials in 1807, but they only discovered these letters back in like 1825, so it was too late. But it's like that seems to me what Albert Pike was also trying to do, and what the Northern abolitionists were trying to do following Caleb Cushing, who wanted to, again, break America free, like radicalize it, create a civil war, get the South to become their own, empire of the Golden Circle with like 1,200-mile radius, empire around Cuba. They had a whole plan to take over Cuba and make it the seat of a new maritime slave empire. And then the North part would go and join British Canada and get rid of the Constitution, create a new confederation with a special relationship to Britain. The South would have a special relationship to Britain, and slowly they would both be reabsorbed as if 1776 never happened. So I really hope that Trump knows his history. And I really, really hope that he's got his finger on these kinds of pulses, because that's what I see as being gamed out in motion right now. And I think it is tied to the restoration of the Kingdom of Jerusalem too. I'll just put that out there. I think that's tied to it.
Are you aware that in the Art of the Deal, which was published, I believe, in 1987, I think, maybe it's either 87 or 89, but I'm pretty sure it was 87. Are you aware that he says that his mother was like obsessed with the British crown and like the pomp and the circumstance and the pageantry, and she'd be like glued to the television whenever they would do specials on it, or they would televise the royal events or whatever. No. And he actually credited that as the reason why he thinks he had like a bigger appetite for the grandeur than his father. His father was perfectly happy just developing, middle class housing, like in the boroughs, whereas he wanted to go to Manhattan and build like the skyscrapers and do the opulence and do, the gold laden interiors and all that. but he credited his mother's affinity for the British crown for that. So I think he is aware of that. Now, to your point, is that going to hoodwink? Is that going to be like a hoodwinking element? Is that going to hoodwink him because he's going to be enamored with, is that going to be the shiny object that leads him in to the, for the trap? The thing that I really find affirming or reassuring, I should say. Well, number one, I don't think Trump's going to sign up for us to take over, like to be like the protectorate or supervisor of Britain. I think Nigel Farage, he looks at Nigel Farage and sees him as like the Trump of Britain. And Farage, for what it's worth, after Brexit retired, he went and helped Trump win, campaign, because Brexit happened in June of 2016. Farage spent the rest of the year helping Trump campaign for president, and then he retired from politics after that. He's like, I did it. Like, I'm done. It's your baby now. We're out of the EU, Britain. Like, the future is yours. And then Boris Johnson came in and just fucked everything up. Just shit everywhere and screwed it all up. And then, of course, last summer, Nigel Farage put out the video where he's like, I'm coming back. He's like, I left it in your hands for however many years, whatever, 7 years, and you screwed it all up. You couldn't do it. 8 years. You screwed it all up. So I'm coming back now to do it right. And this time we're going to see it through. So I think Farage is going to be the guy. But more reassuring than that is what Nicolas Maduro and Trump are doing in Central and South America. We're not going to run through it all right here because it's way too long. But Burning Bright, I went on Burning Bright show on Sunday, and I've gone through it at a surface level with you a few times of this laptop from hell that Maduro got in 2017, and then he filed the lawsuit in the Southern District of Florida in March of 2018. Well, using Ash, because Ash has become pretty good at the whole like law stuff. I mean, she's basically our in-house counsel here at Badlands. She helped me track down the actual lawsuit, and here it is. So here's the lawsuit that Nicolas Maduro filed against 42 oil executives, some of the most powerful, against the 3 or 4 or 5 most powerful commodity trading companies in the world, including Glencore, Trafigura, Vitol, Helsinki is another one. And it lists out all the people that he was going after, right? So I read through all this. I read through all these articles that I've been capturing over the years of all these people, all these executives who've been arrested. I found a few names that were overlapping. But then I went and plugged this all into ChatGPT. I fed it the PDF. I fed it all the articles, and I asked it to digest it all and analyze it. And I just let it run and run and run and run. And then I fed it more stuff and fed it more stuff. And I asked it, I was like, am I crazy, or is this all related? This all seems very related right now. The timelines all seem very related. Like these people being arrested starting in 2019. And ChatGPT said, no, you're not crazy. This is actually like these two things seem to be identical. Not only like here are the list of names of the people who appear in the lawsuit versus the people who've been arrested and convicted. And I already knew this part, but I didn't know about the raid. So Maduro, when Maduro files in 2018, Trump then months later puts crippling sanctions on Venezuela, accuses Maduro of being like the head of a cartel, whatever. A terrorist, all that stuff. And so then the defense attorneys for the executives say, well, this is now a national security issue. If we go to discovery, we're going to compromise national security because these oil executives were engaged in corrupt oil deals with Venezuela. We have to dismiss the case. And the judge said, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is national security. So yes, we're going to dismiss the case. Well, unbeknownst to the lawyers at the time, Maduro also filed in March 2018 in Geneva because all of these companies also had home offices in Geneva. And so they had jurisdiction. And they did that hoping that the European authorities would would take note of the filing and then go capture the evidence that they had put together, which was massive, and then go create start criminal investigations based on that. Not only did that happen, but months after the filing occurred, the Swiss authorities raided the office of I think it's called Helsinki, which is like the company that is, it's not as big as Glencore or Trafigura or Vital, but it's the one that was most closely interlocked with the Venezuelan like oil conglomerate. They went and they raided their office, and then from there, all of a sudden, these guys all started getting arrested, and the Trafigura CEO, president at the time, just went former Formula One driver, Mark Wainwright is his name. He was just convicted in January. He's in prison now. The CEO of Glencore, which is the most powerful of all of them, resigned in 2019. I think because of these investigations that were happening. He was arrested last August. And where was he arrested? This is August 2024. He was arrested in Britain. And not only was he arrested in Britain by British authorities, but the Biden DOJ was helping with the prosecution.
What's his name?
His name is Alex Beard.
Okay.
And so Alex Beard was arrested in Britain, by British authorities, August 2024. And not only was the Biden DOJ helping with that, because obviously Biden was in office, the Biden DOJ helped prosecute the Dan Gertler lawsuit. Remember Dan Gertler, the Israeli diamond scion who was doing all the child slavery in the mines in Africa? He was targeted under Executive Order A318, which was December 20th, 2017, 3 months before Maduro gets files the laptop from hell. So the timeline here is Maduro gets the laptop from hell in March of 2017. He spends the rest of 2017 getting lawyers together and gathering data. And he hires an American lawyer to run point on this, David Boyce. And then December of 2017, that's when Trump signs Executive Order 13818, which says if you engage in human rights violations, particularly child trafficking, child slavery, we're going to freeze your assets. Not seize them, freeze them. So Dan Gertler gets all of his assets frozen. March of 2018, 3 months later, is when the filing occurs. So Trump didn't actually have any access to. Now, Gertler is not involved in those the filing itself. But Glencore was. Glencore was involved like all over that filing, and Glencore was Gertler's chief partner, and Alex Beard was the guy involved. Alex Beard was the node that connects the Venezuelan oil thing to the Dan Gertler Africa thing, because he was doing oil deals in Africa as well. Point is that the Gertler prosecution does not occur on U.S. soil by the U.S. government. It occurs on British soil by the British government with the assistance of the Brazilian Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Justice, Biden's Department of Justice, going after Dan Gertler on behalf of Donald Trump, basically seeing through an executive order that Donald Trump had signed. Biden's DOJ sees it through. It gives Trump narrative shielding because Dan Gertler is deeply involved in like the Jewish diaspora and like the whole Israeli like oligarchy. So it gives Trump narrative shielding because it wasn't Trump's DOJ who went after Dan Gertler. It was Biden's DOJ that went after him. And by the way, 5 days before Trump leaves office, Dan Gertler is removed from that sanctions list, and the sanctions are lifted because Ron Dermer, Netanyahu's right-hand man, goes into the State Department and says this has to happen. And so Mike Pompeo and all the bad guys that are in that nexus are like, yes, this does have to happen. They take his name off the list. Okay, that's January 15th, 2021. March 20th, 2021, 2 months later, somebody put Dan Gertler back on that list and reapplied the sanctions. You know who that was? Janet Yellen. Why did Janet Yellen put Dan Gertler back on that list? So these are all questions that deserve to be answered. I don't have the answers for that. Like, I don't know why Janet Yellen would do that. But Janet Yellen seems to be a character in Trump's little play that like his little soap opera that he's running. I mean, he hasn't cast her fully off the island yet. All of it's very, very strange though. It's like, why is
because Dan Gertler's primary role has been to keep control through the like diamond and other, I don't know what other precious.
It's the Israeli diamond exchange.
It's specifically that, eh? So that has had a role to play in managing Africa as a big zone of influence over the last decades.
His cousin is the president of it. So it's like his grandfather started it, Moshe Schnitzer. His cousin, who seems like the more competent like businessman and the more polished businessman, is the head of the Israeli diamond exchange. Gertler basically is the guy who's going out and like putting all the deals together, and like he's the boots on the ground.
Would you say that his primary jurisdiction or his energy has been devoted to maintaining the Africa portfolio, or
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So an enforcer of a systems management within the African jurisdiction. That's what Cecil Rhodes also set up De Beers to do, as well as to have a cover to basically, imperially manage Africa and keep it from developing under the guise of resource extraction around diamonds. So I'd be curious it's important to, I guess, just hold in mind the deals behind the scenes right now and the efforts to try to keep control, because on the one hand, they've been losing control of Africa, especially over the past decade in general, as Pan-Africanism has really taken a big breath and a big leap that they thought they'd smothered when they killed, Thomas Sankara back in 1984. It was believed that the Pan-African resistance of Lumumba and Nkrumah and others had been fully quashed. And then all of a sudden you started seeing it making a big comeback. And it seems like you've got different ideas of what Pan-Africanism is. And, you have certain factions that are trying to redefine it around something a little bit more Peter Thiel, localized technotronic city states managing things. And then you have the more legitimate aspirations of real national development that I believe you have coming out of people like the head of Burkina Faso currently and others.
That's a problem. That you talk about a promising situation. That's a problem. I think Burkina Faso is going to become the case study for how quickly nuclear energy can pull people out of living in caves to being like the Jetsons, basically.
And Ethiopia as well, with their massive, great Renaissance dam, hydroelectric dam, which is, it's really coming online fast right now. And that's another positive way of really providing massive economic opportunity to all of Africa as a whole, and to drive it with advanced science, technology, and high quality energy, which is why there's been still so many efforts to destabilize Ethiopia through, the Tigray and other types of insurrectionary groups. But, I think it's important to see all of these foreign powers getting pushed out: France, the U.S. military, Israel, and to what degree we have forces within the United States and around Trump who are assisting in the Pan-African movement and creating that space for them to really breathe and to gain some sovereignty, as well as Venezuela, right? And the Latin American fight too, to get control of their drug cartels that have been groomed and have grown over decades and decades during the Cold War by the Jewish and Italian mafia, supported by the CIA and other three-letter agencies. That's some important conceptions to hold in mind. I see there you have a map.
Yeah. So the really important thing to understand, and I think I might even have a map that shows this, and I can try to pull that up too. The really important thing to understand, like, let me just bring this back to the British Empire, because that's what got us on the Venezuela thing. Okay, so the pincer move that I think is happening against Maduro, like Maduro is being targeted by the regime, right? The regime being like whatever this transnational cabal cartel, London-based, Vatican-based, Venice-based thing is, right? The pincer move is this: the cartels that operate out of Colombia here on the West Coast, and the two primary places they operate in are there's two districts right here in southwestern Venezuela. I think it's called Truchira and what is it? I have it right here. Stand by for processing. It's right. Venezuela cartel map and this one. Yeah. So here's the one. Right here. These two down here in the left, Zulia and Táchira. Those are the two places that, like, I mean, you can see wherever there's a weed leaf, that's where the cartel operates in Venezuela. But this is the Colombian cartel, okay? But the two like epicenters of it are Zulia and Táchira. So you've heard about this big buildup of like 25,000 Venezuelan troops who are going to fight the U.S. Navy because they're floating out there in the water, right? Well, they just announced last week that they're actually going to go ahead and they're going to run the operations themselves against the cartels because they're not going to let some foreign military come in and do it themselves. And the two places that these troops are amassed are in Zulia and Táchira. And they actually had one of their generals come and give like a presentation, like a 5-minute video explaining all this that was posted on X in Spanish. And then people, did like the English AI translation. But the other place that he said they're operating is over here in the east. They're operating over here in the east, and the reason they're doing that is because back in, I think it was November 2023, all of a sudden these militias in Guyana started appearing at the border and causing trouble and trying to destabilize Venezuela. Guyana, of course, if you go look at a map of the British Commonwealth, is the only country. It's the only country in Central and South America that is part of the British Commonwealth. And Guyana, of course, there is this really, really big here. I have it right here. Like you can see right there, the green. Like there's the, let me pull it up, see if I can find a better map. Yeah, you can see it right here. Like the green right there, the Guyana. That's the only country. I think it looks like maybe Honduras is too, but yeah, the only one in South America, at least, that is part of the British, that is a formal part of the British Commonwealth. And if you're familiar with like the big disputes that are happening right now, there's a major dispute over that big oil belt that runs in the water right here off the coast between Venezuela and Guyana. And the arguments are by these oil companies is that it's actually under Guyana's purview because of the way the territorial waters should be drawn. And and Maduro is like, no. That's Venezuelan water. This whole like western part of Guyana. That's why when you go back to the Google Maps, you see this like dashed line. Basically, what Maduro is saying is everything west of this dashed line is actually part of Venezuela, and that this is a proxy state that it's not even a foreign country. They're saying this is actually part of Venezuela, always has been. And the British can go sit on it and twirl. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that the Commonwealth is trying to use these corporate laws, these like the international courts, to steal the oil away from Venezuela, and then they're also using the pressures of the Colombian cartel in the West against Maduro. And I think this military operation that's underway is actually designed to help Maduro get rid of the cartel in the West so then he can turn around and deal with Guyana.
Yeah, I think that's a fair hypothesis. The other dangerous hypothesis that I hold in mind, because I'm always like looking at all these scenarios, is that when I've been talking about the Golden Circle a lot, is that one of the ways to organize society that Albert Pike and company were trying to do, this is the map that they published in 1858, around the idea of the empire of the Golden Circle. And they made a lot of efforts to try to take control of Latin American, Caribbean, South America, like the northern part of South America. William Walker being one of these Pike affiliates who declared himself dictator of Nicaragua for like a year until he got overthrown. But that was part of the idea. And that circle was supposed to expand and expand outward. And then the other thing too is that, you got the famous thing I've shown a million times, which is the Elon Musk grandfather. So when he ran the Technate of America, Technocracy Inc., back in the 30s, their stated objective was to get rid of conventional forms of capital, like the idea of private enterprise, capitalism, and the elected class, in favor of a new unelected class of experts that would shut down society by controlling the levers of production, and then create what's called the Soviet of engineers that would then create an artificial collapse economically and then impose a new order based on this Technate idea. And again, the fact that it was Elon Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, who oversaw that as he ran the Saskatchewan branch of that, which features Venezuela as a clear part of its jurisdiction, as well as Guyana for that matter too, causes me also to always hold like a little bit of a concern in the back of my head, because the coincidence of Elon Musk being what he is now, speaking to the, what is it, the Unite the Kingdom rallies, and trying to take sort of shape and sculpt the feelings and thinking of the conservative resistance into a certain direction, and having that guy of all people in the world, his grandfather, running that thing. And then Elon's also spoken, highly about creating a Technate of Mars and all of these things, causes me again to just like jeer a little bit. Like I shudder a little bit at that possibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, like 5 years ago, I was convinced Elon Musk was a bad guy. Trust me, I haven't been down the rabbit holes like you have. Like, you are much more informed. Please send me that map. I'd love to add that. I need to add that to my mind map. I didn't realize I was familiar with the concept of the Technate of like North America. I didn't realize that it also included Venezuela and Colombia, Venezuela, and Guyana. Yeah. It also includes, by the way, Greenland. And we've seen recently that that's the other thing, is that argument does kind of steelman in a lot of ways the concerns that you have, because I was also going to mention the fact that they're they're gonna pull Greenland away from Denmark. Like, Denmark's losing Greenland. I think that's basically done. They over the summer, Trump's chief of staff, Trump's joint chiefs or whatever, the combatant commands redrew the combatant command lines, because the combatant command line between NORCOM and Eurocom, which was it went right up to the southern tip of Greenland, and it used to go along the west side of Greenland, so that Greenland was part of Eurocom. They redrew it this summer, so now it goes on the other shoreline, like the opposite coast of Greenland. So now Greenland's part of Northcom. And so then, like, the Danish started freaking out, being like, wait a minute, this means that they're a higher defense priority for you. And they're like, yeah, it does, but sit down and shut up, like chill out, like, we're not doing anything yet, just calm down. But it's very obvious they're doing something. And they also are accusing Trump of like running psychological warfare campaigns in Greenland to like seed the idea of like leaving Denmark and joining the US. So I don't know. It's like, we'll see what happens there, but I don't think Canada is going to become a part of the United States. Like, I don't think it's going to become a 51st state. That seems a little too crazy. Greenland becoming a state is less concerning because of the population there is like 60,000 people. It's not even that many people. It's really more about the resources there, I think, than anything else. I think if anything, it just becomes a protectorate. But, it's also interesting to bring it all back to what we were talking about originally. The fact that Elon and Trump had that divorce, they had that public divorce, the breakup. Right. And then what did Elon do? He went on X, and he's the one that accused Trump of being in the Epstein files. Like, the whole beginning of Trump being in the Epstein files came off of Elon's X account. He's the one who was like, he reposted somebody and said, yeah, well, wait till you see who's actually in the Epstein files. And then he was like, yeah, Trump's in the Epstein files. And just started and the media ran with it. And then the Democrats ran with it. And right now, I was watching Cash's Senate testimony when we went live. That's what every single person is grilling Cash on that. Like, Dan Goldman is like, how many times is Trump in the Epstein files? How many, like when you found out he was in the Epstein files, did you tell Trump? Did you tell Pam Bondi? Like, is he in there 1,000 times? Is he in there 2,000 times? Like, they are rabid. Like, they are convinced this is how they're going to get Trump, is with the Epstein files. And again, Elon Musk is the one who seeded that idea after his like little public breakup with Trump. So, by the way, he also did the whole thing with Maduro last summer, where him and Maduro were like, all right, we're gonna have like a wrestling match, and
that was clearly that was clearly
like loser has to go live on Mars or something like that. I mean, it was something really stupid, or shave the mustache.
I appreciated.
If Maduro loses, he has to shave his mustache. If Elon loses, like Maduro gets to live on Mars for free or something like that. Right. So retarded.
I appreciated Maduro's also cheeky retort when the $50 million bounty was put on his head. His retort was, "How about we give a $50 million bounty to the Epstein files, who could ever make those public?" So that was
yeah. It's like you had this really cheeky relationship between Maduro and Trump that
there's something playful there.
Like, yeah. So anyway,
cool. All right, sweet. So it's 2:12 p.m. Eastern time. So we should probably roll it out. But what I'm going to do is read. I found that last ad. I uploaded it. So I'm going to play the last ad, and then if there's any comments that catch your eye, if there's any, you can get ready to read those in a second. So here is the last ad. SD deodorant.
Deodorant should do more than cover you up. It should protect you all day long.
Dude, the deodorant stick is legit. I like the mint one. And, you go work out and you kind of get like, you get funky if you work out. Dude, like at the end of my workout, like I'm sweating, shirt got all those sweat. Like I'm like, dude, I still smell good. Like I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't tried it, try it.
That's the difference with Soft Disclosure. No aluminum, no chemicals, just clean, natural ingredients that fight odor and keep you fresh through every workout, every meeting, every moment.
I've always struggled with the you can't use aluminum deodorant because you're going to die if you use it kind of thing, because all of the non-aluminum deodorant products suck pretty much. This is different. This is all day. You're all day good, and you're not putting any of that disgusting chemicals right near your lymph nodes.
Soft Disclosure deodorant, real protection, real freshness, built on truth. Available in mint and lemon grapefruit. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off.
Soft Disclosure. Did somebody whisper soft disclosure? Did you whisper soft disclosure just now, or is that part of the commercial?
No, John.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That was part of the ad.
Vanilla coffee. That sounds that caught my attention. I'm gonna try this out. I've never found an organic, healthy deodorant that, like Ash said, doesn't suck. So I'm gonna give this one a shot. We went through a lot, man. This is a fun ride. I appreciate this, as I always do. Were there any comments from the audience?
I don't see any. I think we might be good.
Sweet.
Let me check one more time on Rumble. Yeah, I think we're good. All right, guys, if y'all just hit the thumbs up, appreciate y'all being here. We will catch you next week. So thanks again, Matt.
All right, thank you, Gordon. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.